The secret reason some women never age. Carl Jung's hidden truth. Have you ever met a woman who seems to glow, not from makeup, not from youth, but from something invisible, almost sacred? Carl Jung believed that such women carry a rare spiritual quality, a timeless connection between soul and body that defies age itself. This isn't just beauty, it's consciousness made visible. Part 1. The timeless feminine energy beyond physical youth. Carl Jung once said that what we call beauty is often the visible reflection of something deeper, a resonance between body and spirit. When a woman appears younger than her age, it is not always the result of cosmetics or genetics. Jung would argue that it reflects a specific spiritual vibration, a connection with the timeless dimension of her psyche, the part that remains unaged, untouched by years, and eternally vital. This is what he called the Eros principle, the feminine life force that nurtures, heals, and gives birth not only to children, but also to creativity, compassion, and meaning. In Jungian psychology, the feminine energy, Eros, stands in contrast to the masculine principle, Logos. Logos is logic, reason, and structure, the conscious world of goals and external achievement. Eros, by contrast, is connection, sensitivity, and emotional intelligence. It flows, feels, and binds. Women who carry this Eros energy in balance exude a certain vitality that cannot be imitated. Their youthfulness comes from harmony rather than resistance. They do not fight time, they dance with it. Jung believed that each woman's unconscious carries a deep reservoir of archetypal energy. The archetype of the maiden represents purity, curiosity, and the ability to see life with fresh eyes. The mother symbolizes nourishment, compassion, and life-giving love. The crone, often misunderstood, is wisdom and the deep serenity that comes with acceptance. Women who remain youthful are not stuck in one archetype, they integrate all three. They preserve the maiden's openness, embody the mother's nurturing warmth, and radiate the crone's inner wisdom. When these energies coexist peacefully, the psyche glows and the body mirrors that glow. In modern culture, youth is often commodified. It's reduced to smooth, skin-toned muscles and filtered images. Jung would have called this a projection, the ego's obsession with outer appearance as a substitute for inner vitality. But when youth arises from the self, the divine center of the psyche, it carries a very different quality. It is calm, magnetic, and quietly radiant. A woman like this doesn't need to chase validation. People simply feel good in her presence. She vibrates with life itself. Her laughter heals. Her silence feels safe. True feminine youth in Jung's sense is not about preserving the body, it's about renewing the soul. Jung's theory of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole, reveals that people who keep evolving psychologically stay youthful because they continue to grow. They shed identities, beliefs, and emotional burdens that no longer serve them. This shedding is a kind of spiritual exfoliation. Just as the skin regenerates by releasing old cells, the psyche rejuvenates by releasing old pain. When a woman refuses to become rigid, when she keeps her heart open, her mind curious, and her soul humble, she steps into the flow of life. This flow is what Jung described as the connection between the conscious and the unconscious. It's the rhythm of creation. Those who are aligned with it do not age in the same way as those who resist it. They live in harmony with cycles, the seasons, emotions, relationships, and endings. They know that every death within them gives birth to something new. One of Jung's most profound observations was that the unconscious is timeless. The body may age, but the soul remains eternal. Women who tap into this timeless layer of consciousness carry an aura of eternal youth because they live from that dimension. They are less identified with external form. Their sense of self comes from within, from connection, meaning, and purpose. Their faces may show lines, but their eyes shine with vitality, curiosity, and a quiet flame that never goes out. Let's imagine two women at 45. One spends her energy resisting time, comparing herself to others, chasing external validation, clinging to the past. Her anxiety and resistance tighten her expression, harden her energy, and make her seem older than she is. The other woman accepts her evolution with grace. She meditates, creates, forgives, learns, and laughs easily. She does not deny pain, but she processes it. Her presence is light, her movements fluid. She doesn't need to prove anything because she lives in truth. The difference between the two is not skincare, it's consciousness. The second woman's youthfulness is the visible evidence of her inner alignment. According to Jung, every person contains both masculine and feminine energies, the animus and the anima. When these energies are in balance, a person radiates harmony. For women, this balance often reveals itself as confidence without hardness, sensitivity without weakness, and strength without ego. When the animus, the inner masculine, supports her eros rather than dominating it, a woman feels safe, expressing her authentic self. That authenticity is magnetic. People sense when someone is truly alive from the inside out, when their smile, tone, and gestures come from the soul, not from a mask. Youth that comes from spirit has nothing to do with denial of age. It's a byproduct of integration. Jung noted that neurosis, psychological suffering, arises when there is conflict between the conscious ego and the unconscious self. When a woman suppresses her emotions, desires, or truth to fit expectations, she fragments. Energy that should be creative becomes stagnant. This stagnation shows up physically as fatigue, dullness, or even illness. But when she allows herself to feel fully, express freely, and heal sincerely, that same energy becomes luminous. Her very aura transforms. Women who look younger than their age often share a subtle commonality. They live with a sense of wonder. They are not cynical. They can still marvel at beauty, nature, art, or a simple human gesture. This is the quality Jung admired in the individuated soul, the capacity to remain amazed. The moment wonder dies, the soul starts to age. Wonder is food for the psyche. It keeps the inner world vivid and alive. When a woman continues to nourish her imagination, she feeds her unconscious with light, and that light reflects outward. In Jung's framework, beauty is symbolic. It's not just physical symmetry. It's the expression of inner harmony. When a woman's outer appearance and inner world are congruent, she radiates coherence. People may not know why they feel drawn to her, but they sense alignment. This spiritual coherence produces a magnetic effect. It's not sexual in nature, it's soulful. The same energy that makes a flower bloom makes her presence bloom. This is why Jung associated true beauty with individuation, the process of becoming who you really are. The women who embody this timeless youth often embrace paradoxes. They can be strong and soft, assertive and gentle, disciplined yet playful. Jung saw wholeness as the union of opposites. To remain youthful is to remain flexible psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. Rigidity ages the soul, flexibility renews it. When a woman learns to bend rather than break, to laugh rather than dwell, to surrender rather than control, she aligns with the flow of life, and that flow keeps her spirit young. Modern psychology confirms what Jung intuited: chronic stress accelerates aging, not just physically but energetically. Cortisol drains vitality, fear contracts energy, and resentment poisons joy. The Jungian woman who looks younger isn't free from problems. She simply metabolizes emotions faster. She lets go. She doesn't suppress pain but transforms it through reflection, art, prayer, or service. In doing so, she prevents emotional toxins from becoming physical ones. She keeps her nervous system open, adaptable, and attuned. The spiritual quality Jung recognized in such women is a kind of inner radiance, an invisible light that reflects psychological integration. It's the same light mystics call the divine feminine. It is intuitive, healing, and compassionate. This energy rejuvenates not only the woman who carries it, but also those around her. In its presence, others feel seen, understood, and uplifted. Jung would say she embodies the archetype of the healer, one who heals simply by being whole. Every woman has this potential. The question is not whether she can be youthful, but whether she is willing to reconnect with the parts of herself she has abandoned. The lost dreams, the silenced intuition, the unexpressed creativity, these fragments of her soul contain the elixir of renewal. When she reclaims them, she reclaims her spiritual vitality. Jung described this process as descending into the unconscious, confronting the shadow, and emerging with new awareness. Each descent is painful, but every return brings more light. And with light comes life, a youthful life force that transcends time. In essence, women who look younger carry within them the energy of presence. They are fully alive in the now. They do not live from the memories of the past or the anxieties of the future. Presence is timeless. It suspends the ego's constant chatter and connects the individual to the eternal. In this space, years lose their grip. The woman who embodies presence doesn't look young. She is young because she exists in the eternal now where the soul does not age. The miracle Jung would remind us is that the secret of eternal youth has never been external. It has always been within, in the psyche's relationship to life itself. The woman who loves deeply, feels freely, forgives easily, and keeps evolving will always look younger than the woman who clings to fear, resentment, and control. Time cannot dull the soul that lives truthfully. It can only polish it. That is the hidden alchemy behind spiritual youth, the transformation of pain into wisdom and wisdom into light. And when that light shines from within, no wrinkle can dim it, no number can define it. It is the ageless glow of a soul in harmony with itself, the sacred essence of the timeless feminine. Part 2. The integration of the shadow, how healing makes a woman. Radiate. Carl Jung believed that no one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. For women, this statement holds a sacred truth. The youthful radiance that many women seem to carry effortlessly is not born from light alone. It is born from the integration of shadow. When a woman learns to face the parts of herself she once rejected, she retrieves fragments of her lost energy. That reclaimed energy becomes vitality, and vitality becomes radiance. Many women spend their lives trying to suppress or conceal what Jung called the shadow, the hidden aspects of personality that feel unacceptable, shameful, or unworthy. These might be anger, jealousy, fear, lust, or even deep sadness. Yet Jung insisted that these shadow qualities are not evil, they are power. The more a woman suppresses them, the more her inner light dims. The moment she dares to look into that darkness with compassion, instead of judgment, she releases the energy that has been trapped there for years. That release is transformative not only emotionally but physically. Her face softens, her eyes brighten, her energy expands. This is why Jung often said that the unconscious seeks expression. If it is denied, it manifests as fate. For many women, unhealed wounds become visible in the body. Tension in the shoulders, tightness in the jaw, fatigue in the eyes. These are not random. They are the body's symbolic language revealing where the soul has been holding pain. When a woman begins shadow work through introspection, journaling, therapy, or deep prayer, she gives these hidden emotions permission to speak. Once expressed, they no longer have to manifest through suffering. The body begins to relax and the psyche begins to glow. Radiance in Jungian depth psychology is the natural byproduct of psychological wholeness. A woman who has accepted her darkness no longer needs to hide behind perfection. Her authenticity becomes her beauty. She doesn't need to fake calmness or pretend to be kind. She is genuinely kind because she understands her own cruelty. She is patient with others because she has met her own chaos. This kind of woman doesn't carry the exhausting weight of denial. She walks lighter because her soul is integrated. When Jung explored female archetypes, he described the shadow feminine as the part of the psyche that holds both destructive and creative forces. It is the aspect that society often fears, the raw, instinctual power of the woman who feels deeply and speaks truth. When this aspect is repressed, it manifests as bitterness, insecurity, or dependence. But when it's integrated, it becomes intuition, sensual wisdom, and emotional strength. The woman who looks younger than her age has often consciously or unconsciously learned this secret. She allows herself to feel everything without letting emotions destroy her. That emotional intelligence keeps her spiritually supple, like a tree that bends in the wind but does not break. Jung wrote that the shadow is 90% pure gold. This paradox means that what we consider ugly or shameful in ourselves often hides our most precious vitality. A woman's suppressed rage, for example, when healed, becomes courage. Her jealousy becomes clarity about what she desires. Her sadness becomes empathy. Her fear transforms into intuition. Every shadow emotion, when embraced, becomes fuel for creativity and renewal. The energy that once aged her through tension, repression, or self-criticism begins to serve her, illuminating her from within. There is a visible difference between a woman who lives in self-repression and a woman who has integrated her shadow. The first tends to carry a tight, anxious energy. Her body language shows contraction, shoulders slightly inward, eyes guarded. The second woman, though she may not wear more makeup or have fewer wrinkles, radiates openness. There is an ease about her. Her laughter feels real, her silence is grounded, and her presence feels safe. Jung would say she embodies the self, the wholeness that emerges when the ego no longer resists the unconscious. Integration does not mean perfection. It means accepting the paradoxes that make us human. For women, this often involves reclaiming anger, sexuality, ambition, or grief, all the traits that society may have conditioned them to suppress. When a woman stops dividing herself into good and bad parts, she stops leaking energy. That wholeness creates coherence, and coherence creates magnetism. The human psyche, when no longer at war with itself, becomes luminous. To understand how healing makes a woman physically radiant, Jung would point to the connection between psyche and soma, between mind and body. The more a woman represses her emotions, the more her life force becomes trapped. But when she expresses truth, the flow returns. Energy is restored. It's why tears can make the skin glow, why forgiveness makes the face softer, and why laughter seems to erase years. The nervous system recognizes truth and responds with vitality. There's a striking observation Jung made about dreams. They reveal what the conscious mind refuses to see. In the same way, the body mirrors the psyche's truth. A woman who constantly denies her sadness might find it showing up as exhaustion. A woman who hides her anger may feel chronic tightness in her chest. When she begins to work through these emotions consciously, her body releases what it has held for years. She breathes deeper. Blood circulates more freely. Her aura expands. It's not metaphoric, it's energetic biology. The psyche and the body are one system, constantly communicating. This healing radiance cannot be faked. It doesn't come from affirmations or surface positivity. It comes from real shadow work, the kind that requires courage to confront inner wounds. Jung called this process the nigredo phase, borrowed from alchemy, the stage of darkness and decomposition before transformation. A woman entering her nigredo might feel lost, confused, or broken. But if she stays with it, if she continues to face her fears, grieve her losses, and release her old identities, she will eventually experience albedo, the whitening. That's the moment of renewal, when the psyche integrates the lesson and emerges lighter. Many women who look younger after a painful season are in truth embodying the alchemical transformation of the soul. When pain becomes wisdom, it changes the face. You can see it in the eyes of women who have been through hell and yet radiate peace. They have cried enough to wash away illusions. Their beauty is not naive, it's earned. It carries depth, compassion, and power. They no longer waste energy hiding their scars. They wear them as jewels. Jung would say such women are no longer ruled by the shadow, they are dancing with it. To integrate the shadow also means learning to love the parts of oneself that never received love. This self-compassion rejuvenates the entire being. Science even supports Jung here. Emotions like gratitude and compassion release oxytocin and dopamine, hormones that reduce stress and promote regeneration. In spiritual language, love restores youth because it restores flow. When a woman finally forgives herself for her mistakes, her past relationships, her perceived failures, she frees a tremendous amount of life, energy that was frozen in guilt or regret. That release is visible. Her presence becomes lighter. Jung emphasized that individuation, becoming whole, is not about becoming pure light, but about integrating both light and shadow into conscious unity. The youthful, radiant woman embodies that unity. She can feel sadness without drowning in it and joy without clinging to it. She is aware of her dark impulses but chooses not to act from them. This inner maturity paradoxically gives her a childlike glow. She no longer pretends. Her transparency makes her magnetic. There is also a spiritual dimension here that Jung hinted at, but mystics across cultures have echoed: when the shadow is integrated, divine energy can flow freely through the vessel of the body. A woman who resists nothing becomes a conduit of life. She doesn't need to chase beauty. Beauty moves through her. Her face becomes a mirror of grace because grace is flowing within her. In relationships, this integration changes everything. A woman who has met her shadow no longer projects it onto others. She doesn't need to control, blame, or manipulate. She understands that every irritation is an invitation to self-awareness. This maturity gives her an emotional stability that others can feel. People are drawn to her not because of her appearance, but because she feels like home, safe, warm, and real. Jung would call this an individuated presence, when a person becomes a complete human being, not an image. One of Jung's students once wrote that the human face is a map of the soul. Every healed emotion leaves a trace not as a wrinkle but as depth. Women who do deep psychological work often develop what could be called a soul face. Expressive, alive, compassionate. You can't measure it by symmetry. It's measured by vibration. They look younger not because they are untouched by life, but because they are in touch with life. Healing in Jung's language is wholeness, and wholeness restores the natural rhythm of the psyche, the cycle of tension and release of death and rebirth. Each time a woman descends into her shadow and rises again, she becomes more integrated, more grounded, and paradoxically more radiant. Time cannot erode what has become whole. The woman who knows herself fully is beyond decay, because her essence has merged with the eternal aspect of the psyche, the self. When Jung described individuation as a sacred journey, he implied that this process would be visible in the physical world. The woman who integrates her shadow is literally lighter, her energy field less dense, her nervous system more fluid, her body more relaxed. This state of openness is what we interpret as youth. The spiritual quality behind it is authenticity, a soul that has nothing left to hide. And that is the deeper secret Jung revealed. When a woman brings light into her own darkness, the entire world sees her differently. Her beauty no longer depends on external standards, but on her capacity to embody truth. She becomes ageless, not because she denies time, but because she lives beyond it, radiant, integrated, and whole. Part 3. The spirit of play and creativity. Jung's path to the inner child. Carl Jung once said that the greatest tragedy of life is not death, but the fact that many people stop playing long before they die. For him, the ability to play was not childish, it was divine, it was a living expression of the soul's vitality. When a woman looks younger than her age, Jung would argue that she has not lost her connection with the inner child, the most creative, spontaneous, and spiritually alive part of her psyche. In Jungian depth psychology, the inner child is not merely a memory of youth. It is an archetypal energy, the part of the self that retains innocence, wonder, and emotional honesty. The child within each of us is the guardian of creativity, curiosity, and the capacity for joy. When a woman preserves this inner connection, she emanates lightness, flexibility, and emotional vibrancy. Her laughter is unguarded, her curiosity genuine, her imagination active. These qualities don't just make her seem young, they keep her psychologically and spiritually young. Jung observed that the creative function of the psyche emerges when the ego relaxes. In childhood, the ego is still fluid. A child can imagine, create, and transform effortlessly. Over time, however, life's responsibilities and social conditioning teach adults to suppress spontaneity in favor of control. The result is psychic stiffness, the slow calcification of the soul. Women who appear older than they are often carry this kind of inner rigidity. They have stopped playing with life. Everything becomes serious, logical, scheduled. Jung would call this the domination of the logos, the masculine principle of order, over the eros, the feminine principle of flow. The spiritually youthful woman restores the balance. She allows herself to live with curiosity, humor, and fluidity. She may meditate, dance, write poetry, garden, or simply allow herself to be silly. Her creativity is not for productivity, it's for communion with life. Jung believed that this kind of activity connects the conscious mind with the unconscious. It becomes a bridge between the visible and invisible worlds. When a woman creates, she is in dialogue with her soul. Creativity, according to Jung, is the most direct expression of the self, the divine center of the psyche. It allows repressed emotions to find safe expression and converts psychic tension into art, movement, and meaning. When a woman paints her emotions instead of suppressing them, sings her sorrows instead of hiding them, or writes her longings instead of denying them, she is performing psychological alchemy. She transforms pain into beauty. That act of transformation is rejuvenating because it restores psychic flow. Aging in the Jungian sense is not simply biological, it is also energetic. The psyche begins to age when it loses its sense of play. When life becomes mechanical and repetitive, the unconscious stops communicating through inspiration and dreams. The woman who keeps her imagination alive keeps her dialogue with the unconscious open. That communication feeds her with intuitive guidance and new perspectives. The result is emotional renewal, a feeling of freshness that radiates outward. Jung used the image of a circle, the mandala, to represent the self, the totality of one's being. He noticed that many of his patients, after deep inner work, spontaneously began to draw circles, spirals, and organic patterns resembling mandalas. This spontaneous creativity was not decoration, it was communication from the unconscious. For women, creative acts like painting, music, or even home decoration can be ways the psyche expresses its desire for wholeness. The more freely a woman creates, the more she invites her soul to speak. That conversation is what keeps her youthful. The playful spirit is also deeply connected to healing. Modern neuroscience supports what Jung intuited. Play and laughter activate the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering stress hormones and increasing vitality. But on a deeper level, play heals because it dissolves rigidity, the same rigidity that ages the psyche. A woman who can play, who can laugh at herself, who can dance, even when no one is watching, is aligned with the rhythm of life. She doesn't resist reality. She moves with it. Jung believed that the creative and playful spirit was the essence of individuation, the process of becoming fully oneself. He once said that the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. In other words, the soul evolves through play, not through control. The woman who remains youthful is often the one who trusts the mysterious flow of inspiration. She doesn't force outcomes. She allows life to express through her. The childlike spirit is not naive. It is fearless in its curiosity. The inner child does not judge or overanalyze. It experiences. It explores, fails, tries again. A woman connected with her inner child is resilient because she doesn't expect life to be perfect. She can fall and rise again, laugh and cry freely. This emotional flexibility prevents her from becoming bitter. Bitterness, in Jungian terms, is the emotional equivalent of stiffness, the ego's refusal to adapt. The playful woman, however, adapts easily. She doesn't lose herself in seriousness. Her soul stays elastic, and elasticity is a form of youth. In the language of Jungian archetypes, the puer aeternus, the eternal youth, represents the spirit of renewal. In men, this archetype can become immature when unbalanced. But in women who have matured through shadow integration, it becomes the source of creative vitality. It's the part of the psyche that keeps dreaming, discovering, and evolving. The woman who looks young has not rejected her poor, she has refined it. She allows the child within to play under the guidance of the wise woman within. This balance of innocence and wisdom is magnetic. It radiates joy without chaos, spontaneity without recklessness. Creativity also has a sacred function. It allows the soul to express divine order. Jung saw artists as mediators between consciousness and the collective unconscious. Their creations often carried symbols, colors, and forms that reflected universal truths. When a woman expresses herself creatively, she aligns with that same archetypal energy. Whether she writes a poem, arranges flowers, or cooks with love, she is participating in the sacred act of creation. That act charges her with life energy, which others perceive as charm, grace, or youthfulness. Psychologically, play is the antidote to repression. When a woman stops playing, her psyche begins to wither under the weight of shoulds and musts. But when she allows play to re-enter her life, she loosens the control of the inner critic, the harsh voice of the superego. Jung warned that the greatest enemy of the soul's development is excessive seriousness. He saw neurosis as often arising from a loss of play, the inability to dance with paradox. The youthful woman has mastered this dance. She knows that life's uncertainties are not threats but invitations. Women who have endured trauma often rediscover youth through play. After healing, they learn to laugh again, to move again, to trust again. Jung would see this as a return to the self, the reintegration of the lost child within. This moment of rediscovery often coincides with physical rejuvenation. It's as though the cells themselves respond to joy. The sparkle returns to the eyes because the soul has remembered how to wonder. The childlike spirit also opens the door to spirituality. Children naturally live in the present moment. They don't question their belonging in the world. They are the world. Jung described this state as participation mystique, a pre-ego state of unity with existence. When an adult reconnects with this childlike presence consciously, it becomes enlightenment. The woman who laughs freely, creates spontaneously, and forgives quickly is not immature. She is awakened. She has returned to the simplicity that saints and mystics describe, the simplicity of being. There's a reason why people are drawn to women who carry this energy. They make others feel alive. They remind the world of something forgotten, that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. Jung would say that these women have integrated the archetype of the divine child, the image of renewal that appears in dreams and myths as a symbol of new consciousness. The divine child represents hope, creation, and rebirth. Women who embody it radiate those qualities wherever they go. From a Jungian perspective, play and creativity are sacred responsibilities. They maintain the balance between conscious effort and unconscious flow. They keep the psyche dynamic and prevent stagnation. The woman who paints, writes, or sings is not wasting time, she is renewing her soul. Her creative acts keep her connected to the source of all life, which is why she appears timeless. Her joy becomes her skincare. Her laughter becomes her medicine. In the final analysis, the woman who stays young in spirit does not resist aging, she renews herself continually. She plays, she creates, she imagines, she forgives. She lets the child inside her speak. Jung would call this woman individuated, for she has united all parts of herself, the child, the mother, the lover, and the wise woman, into one harmonious whole. And perhaps that's the deepest secret. The eternal youth that people see in her face is simply the reflection of a soul that has never stopped playing with God's creation. She has learned that joy is not a luxury, it is the language of the divine. When she paints, dances, laughs, or loves, she becomes a vessel of that joy. Her body may age, but her spirit dances in eternity. Part 4: The Individuated Woman, the final stage of spiritual youth. Carl Jung believed that the ultimate purpose of every human life is individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, and unified within oneself. For women, this process represents the highest form of spiritual youth. When a woman reaches individuation, she no longer needs to appear young because she is timeless. Her soul has transcended the dualities that once divided her light and dark, strength and vulnerability, logic and emotion, youth and age. She lives from the center of her being, and that center, what Jung called the self, never ages. The individuated woman has walked through every phase of her inner evolution. She has known the maiden's innocence, the mother's devotion, and the wise woman's stillness. She has faced the shadow, embraced her wounds, and integrated her contradictions. What emerges is not perfection but harmony. This harmony expresses itself in the way she moves, speaks, and exists. There is a deep calm about her presence, a softness that coexists with power. She is no longer ruled by ego, fear, or the need for validation. She has returned home to her essence, and that essence radiates youth. In Jung's model of the psyche, individuation is the reconciliation between the ego, the conscious identity, and the self, the divine totality. For most of life, the ego believes it must control, achieve, and defend itself. It resists the unconscious, the unknown forces of emotion, instinct, and spirituality. But as a woman matures inwardly, she begins to sense that control is an illusion. Her power doesn't lie in resistance, it lies in surrender. The more she trusts the flow of life, the lighter she becomes. This surrender is not weakness, it is mastery. It's the realization that life unfolds through her, not against her. That realization transforms her relationship with time. The individuated woman no longer fears aging because she recognizes that her beauty and worth do not come from the external shell but from the soul expressing through it. Her wrinkles are not marks of decay but inscriptions of wisdom. Each line tells a story of feeling of survival of love. Jung wrote that the unconscious compensates for the ego's limitations. In aging, the body may lose strength, but the psyche gains depth. The individuated woman knows this and carries herself with serene confidence. She does not chase youth because she has found eternity within. Jung described the process of individuation as a spiral, a continual return to deeper levels of the self. For women, this spiral often begins with the struggle to please others, then moves toward independence, and finally culminates in authenticity. The individuated woman has transcended both dependence and rebellion. She doesn't need to prove herself to men's society or even to the younger version of herself. She lives from inner authority, guided by intuition, anchored in wisdom. That independence of spirit gives her an unmistakable glow. There is a radiance that comes from a woman who is no longer at war with herself. She no longer competes, compares, or complains. Her energy is not fragmented by internal conflict. Her thoughts, emotions, and actions move in one direction, the direction of truth. Jung believed that wholeness is achieved not by denying opposites, but by integrating them. The individuated woman is both rational and intuitive, strong and gentle, grounded and imaginative. This integration produces inner coherence, and coherence is beauty in its purest form. Jung also taught that individuation involves the union of the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine energies. For a woman, this means embracing the animus not as an external authority to fight or please, but as an inner companion. When her animus becomes conscious, it transforms from a critic into an ally. It gives her clarity, direction, and purpose. At the same time, her feminine nature, her eros, keeps her connected, empathetic, and fluid. Together, these energies make her complete. This balance allows her to move through life gracefully, confident, yet receptive. People sense this harmony instantly. It feels magnetic, ageless, and real. The individuated woman has also made peace with solitude. Jung often said that individuation requires withdrawal from collective noise, not as rejection of the world, but as a return to one's own rhythm. A woman who constantly seeks external approval drains her life force, but a woman who learns to be alone without feeling lonely reclaims her energy. She becomes self-sustaining. Her joy comes from within, not from attention. That inner contentment creates an unmistakable softness in her aura, a gentle power that no cosmetic can replicate. Perhaps the most profound transformation that occurs during individuation is the shift from doing to being. The youthful energy of the ego is driven by ambition, by the desire to prove, achieve, or possess. But the individuated soul lives in stillness. She creates not to impress, but to express. She serves not to be seen, but because it feels natural. This effortless alignment with purpose releases immense spiritual energy. Jung would call this the numinous experience, when a person lives in contact with the divine source within. The glow that people see on such a woman's face is literally the light of that connection. In this stage, the woman's relationship with others changes. She no longer projects her shadow onto people. She sees them as mirrors. She no longer clings or chases. Her love becomes unconditional, not because she suppresses desire, but because she understands it. She can love deeply without losing herself. She can forgive without forgetting her worth. This mature love vibrates at a higher frequency, radiating warmth that others interpret as youth. It's the energy of peace, and peace is eternally beautiful. Jung also pointed out that individuation awakens what he called the transcendent function, the ability to hold tension between opposites until a higher synthesis emerges. In practice, this means the individuated woman doesn't rush to label experiences as good or bad. She can sit with uncertainty. She can hold joy and sorrow in the same breath. This emotional spaciousness keeps her heart open, her mind flexible, and her energy flowing. The moment we stop resisting paradox, we stop aging spiritually. The individuated woman embodies grace under chaos. She has faced her own darkness enough times to know that no storm lasts forever. She trusts the seasons of her life. When something ends, she doesn't fight it, she bows to it. When something begins, she welcomes it. This rhythm of acceptance makes her energy fluid, youthful, and free. She becomes like water, adaptable, transparent, and vital. Jung would say she has achieved psychological wholeness, a dynamic equilibrium between structure and surrender. What truly separates the individuated woman from others is her presence. She carries a serenity that can't be imitated. You feel it in her silence, in her eyes, in the way she listens. She doesn't need to dominate conversations or prove her intelligence. Her presence is medicine. Jung believed that the self communicates through symbols, and one of its most powerful symbols is light. The individuated woman shines without trying. Her light doesn't come from effort, it comes from alignment. She also has a profound relationship with death, not in a morbid sense, but in a spiritual one. Jung saw death as a transformation, not an end. The individuated woman understands that life is a series of small deaths and rebirths. Every time she lets go of an identity, a belief, or an attachment, something new is born within her. This constant cycle of renewal keeps her youthful in spirit. Her soul never stagnates because it knows how to die gracefully and rise again. This stage also brings freedom from illusion. The individuated woman no longer believes that happiness depends on external success, relationships, or recognition. She has tasted the deep joy that comes from authenticity. She understands that peace is not found in having a perfect life, but in having an integrated one. This inner freedom makes her radiant, because nothing can take away what she has found within. Her confidence is quiet, but unshakable. In many ways, the individuated woman embodies what Jung called the self-realized archetype, the union of opposites within a single being. She is both human and divine, finite and eternal. Her beauty no longer depends on youth, but on depth. Her body may age, but her energy field becomes more refined, more luminous. You can see it in the way she moves, unhurried, grounded, graceful. You can feel it in the peace that surrounds her. When Jung spoke of individuation, he often used the image of the sun at its zenith, not the morning brightness of youth, nor the fading light of old age, but the steady golden glow of midday. The individuated woman lives in that glow. She is no longer seeking, she is being. Her smile carries the wisdom of experience and the innocence of the eternal child within. She has become both the journey and the destination. In the modern world where youth is idolized and aging feared, Jung's insight offers radical liberation. Youth is not a physical condition. It's a state of integration. The woman who has made peace with her past, accepted her imperfections, and surrendered to the divine order of her life will always appear ageless. Her spirit radiates through her eyes, through her voice, through her very existence. That is the final stage of spiritual youth, the moment when the woman and her soul are no longer separate. The eternal light within her shines unobstructed, untouched by time. She becomes what Jung called a symbol of the self, a living manifestation of divine wholeness, and in that wholeness lies the secret of ageless beauty, not in resisting the years, but in embodying eternity itself. So the next time you see a woman who seems untouched by time, remember it's not her skin that keeps her young, it's her soul. When the feminine energy heals, plays, and becomes whole, she transcends age. Jung would say she has met herself. And once you find that part of you, you don't just look young, you become eternal.